The bell above the door gave a short, tired jingle as Jack Morgan stepped inside the shelter. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the stillness like a whisper you weren't supposed to hear. The air smelled of bleach and wet concrete, familiar and sterile. To most, it might have seemed clean, maybe even comforting. But to Jack, it smelled like waiting, like something abandoned. He stood for a moment just inside the door, blinking against the fluorescent lights that hummed overhead. A woman at the front desk greeted him with a smile that felt too wide, too practiced. He nodded once, barely, and she didn't press. People like him walked in sometimes, shoulders tight, jaw clenched, eyes scanning for exits. She'd learned not to push. Jack shoved his hands into his jacket pockets and followed the sound of distant barking down the hallway. The cages lined both sides, dogs of all sizes pacing or pressed against the gates, eager for attention or desperate for escape. Some barked with excitement. Others just stared, silent and heavy-eyed, as if already resigned to being forgotten. He didn't know what he was looking for. It had been his sister Emily's idea. "You need a companion," she'd said. "Someone to get you out of your own head." He didn't argue, not because he agreed, but because arguing felt like more effort than silence. She'd driven him here herself, watched him walk inside in the car like a mother dropping off a kid who didn't want to go to school. He moved slowly past each kennel. A Labrador mix barked and jumped against the gate. A beagle with cloudy eyes lay curled in a corner. A mutt with two big paws chewed on a torn blanket. Jack kept walking, face unreadable, hands clenched in his pockets. Then he stopped. The kennel was near the back, partially shadowed by a flickering overhead light. Inside, a large German shepherd lay still, head resting on his paws. He didn't move when Jack approached. He didn't bark or perk up like the others. He just stared. Jack stared back. His breath caught just for a second. He didn't blink. Couldn't. Something in his chest shifted, sharp and sudden, like a chord being struck too hard. Rex. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. The deployment had ended nearly 2 years ago. They'd been separated after the incident. The blast, the dust, the silence that followed. Paperwork. Decommissioning. Reassignment. He'd asked where Rex was sent. No one ever gave him an answer. But he knew. You don't forget eyes like that. You don't forget the shape of the ears, the way the fur curled just slightly under the chin, or the faint scar across the left front paw. You don't forget your partner. Jack moved closer, knelt slowly in front of the gate. His knees creaked, but he didn't care. His hands gripped the cold metal bars, fingers white with pressure. "Rex?" he said, his voice a low rasp. The dog blinked. No movement, no wag of the tail, no recognition. Just a slow blink and a deep sigh, like he was too tired to care. Jack's heart twisted. A staff member noticed him crouched and walked over. Her voice was soft, cautious. "You like him? Came in a few weeks ago. No microchip, but his old handler dropped off some paperwork. Says he's retired military. Said he wasn't adjusting well. Gave him up." Jack didn't move. "What's his name?" She checked the clipboard hanging beside the kennel. "We call him Bandit. But we don't know his original name." Jack laughed, but it wasn't really a laugh. More of a breath that cracked on the way out. His fingers brushed the gate. "His name is Rex." The staffer looked at him, brows knitting slightly, but didn't speak. Jack didn't explain. Didn't try. He leaned in closer. "Hey, buddy, it's me." Nothing. No change in posture. No tilt of the head. No spark of memory in those tired eyes. Just silence. Jack stayed there a long time, longer than he meant to, staring through bars like they were the only thing holding back a flood. The kind of silence that had followed him for years sat heavy between them. And still, Rex didn't move. Jack finally stood, legs stiff, jaw clenched tight. "I want him," he said. The staffer blinked. "You sure? He's not the easiest." "I know," Jack said. "I still want him." As he turned to start the paperwork, he glanced back one more time. Rex hadn't moved, hadn't even lifted his head. But Jack didn't walk away because the dog didn't remember. He stayed because he did. The office was quiet except for the faint clicking of a keyboard and the occasional shuffle of paper. The shelter manager, a woman in her 50s with silver-threaded hair and a sharp, practiced voice, tapped her fingers against a worn file as she scanned the page. Jack sat across from her, stiff-backed, fingers folded tightly in his lap. His knuckles were white, but his expression didn't waver. "You're right," she finally said, looking up over her glasses. His name was Rex. Jack didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at the edge of her desk, like her words hadn't landed yet. "Handler listed as Sergeant First Class Jack Morgan," she continued, softer now. "That you?" He gave a short nod, his throat tightening. "He came in about 3 weeks ago," she went on. "Surrendered by a civilian. Said he couldn't handle him anymore. That Rex was shutting down. Not eating. Not engaging. Just there." Jack's mouth was dry. He wanted to ask who the man was, how he'd ended up with Rex, how the Army had let it happen. But the questions collapsed before they could make it to his lips. The manager handed him the file. "We tried to place him twice. First family brought him back after 2 days. Second one didn't even make it through the door. He growled the moment they opened the kennel." Jack stared down at the thin manila folder. His own name was printed in faded ink near the top, a name he hadn't seen in years. Below it, a scanned image of Rex's military ID tag, stamped with number, rank, and branch, stripped of all the things that made him real. He stood up slowly. "Can I see him again?" She nodded, but her eyes followed him a little longer than they needed to. The walk back to the kennels felt longer this time. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder, the barking more distant, as if the whole world was dimming around him. Each step felt heavier, like he was walking into something he hadn't prepared for. Rex was still lying in the same spot, head low, ears half back. His body looked smaller now, more fragile, like time had folded in on him. But Jack saw through it. The bones were still there, the frame of a dog who used to leap into helicopters, tear through rubble, dive nose first into danger without waiting for command. He knelt again. The concrete floor pressed cold into his knees, but he didn't care. His hands wrapped around the bars, and for a moment all the noise faded. Just him, just Rex, just a thin veil of metal between past and present. "Hey, buddy," he whispered. "It's me." Rex didn't move. "Jack," he said again, more to himself than the dog. "Sergeant Morgan, your handler." Still nothing. No spark of recognition. No ear twitch. No tilt of the head. Just a pair of dark, glassy eyes staring past him like he wasn't there at all. Jack reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a laminated photo. A single still frame from years ago. Him in desert camo, kneeling in the dirt with Rex beside him, both of them grinning, mouths open in the dry wind. Rex's tongue lolling. Jack's hand resting on his shoulder like it belonged there. He pressed the photo gently against the bars. "This was us," he murmured. "You saved me more times than I can count. Pulled me out of hell. You remember, don't you?" Rex blinked slowly, then turned his head away. Jack stayed there, kneeling, breath shallow. It felt like something broke then. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a hairline fracture in whatever armor he'd built around himself since the war, since the silence, since the day they told him Rex had been reassigned, and that was the end of it. That dogs don't remember the way people do. But Jack had never believed that. And now, watching Rex, his Rex, lie there like the past was something too painful to look at, he felt it for the first time. That maybe the damage wasn't just his. Maybe the forgetting wasn't a choice. He stayed a little longer. Long enough to feel the cold sink into his bones. Long enough to see the light shift in Rex's eyes. Not recognition. Not warmth. Just distance. When he stood, his legs felt unsteady. The kind of unsteady that doesn't come from standing too fast, but from the weight of something you can't fix. He looked back once before leaving the kennel. Rex hadn't moved. To anyone else, he was just another rescue case. But to Jack, he was the ghost of memory still waiting to come home. The paperwork was quick. Quicker than Jack expected. A few forms, a copy of his ID, a clipped explanation about the adjustment period. The shelter staff offered him a discount on dog food, a leash, even a well-worn toy someone thought Rex might like. Jack didn't take any of it. He had what he came for. When they opened the kennel gate, Rex didn't hesitate. He didn't retreat either. He simply stood, walked past Jack with no urgency, and let the staff clip the leash to his collar. No protest. No spark. Just motion. Jack held the end of the leash like it was something sacred. Like maybe if he held it long enough, something familiar would come back. But Rex didn't glance back, not even once. They walked to the truck in silence. Jack opened the door, laid down a blanket across the passenger seat, and waited. Rex jumped in on his own, settled against the far door, and turned his face toward the window. Jack shut the door gently, got it on the driver's side, and started the engine. The drive home stretched in stillness. The city blurred past in muted colors. Stoplights, storefronts, passing headlights flickering against the windshield like ghosts trying to catch their attention. Jack glanced over now and then, hoping to see something in Rex's posture, a shift in his eyes, the twitch of an ear. But the dog sat perfectly still, nose pointed toward the glass, as if the world outside made more sense than the one sitting beside him. Jack wanted to speak, to say something simple, like "we're going home," or "you'll like it here," but the words felt cheap in his mouth. What did home mean to a dog who'd spent months alone, passed between hands like equipment no longer needed? When they reached the house, Jack pulled into the gravel drive, tires crunching beneath them. The porch light flickered on automatically. The place looked the same as it always had, modest, quiet, tucked beneath the edge of a pine grove. But tonight, it felt strangely bigger, like it had been waiting, holding its breath. Jack turned off the engine and looked over. Rex hadn't moved. He stepped out, rounded the truck, opened the passenger side. Rex sat there, unmoving, until Jack gave the faintest tug on the leash. Then he jumped down, landed softly, and stood motionless again. His ears flicked at the new sounds, the crickets in the grass, the wind through the trees. His eyes scanned the yard like a soldier checking for tripwires. Jack walked ahead slowly, giving Rex slack, not leading, just inviting. The dog followed, one cautious step at a time. Inside, Jack had prepared more than he wanted to admit. A fresh bed in the corner of the living room, water and food bowls, a box of old gear from deployment days, most of it collecting dust, but one or two pieces still holding the faint smell of dirt and adrenaline. He'd even left a window cracked. Knowing Rex had always hated the sound of closed-in spaces. "Come on," he said softly, voice cracking from disuse. "This is your spot." Rex stood in the doorway, his body rigid. He sniffed the air once, twice, then slowly walked inside, his paws quiet against the hardwood. He didn't go to the bed, didn't investigate the toys, just walked the perimeter of the room like he was mapping it, committing it to memory in case he needed to escape. Jack sat on the couch and watched. It felt wrong, see him like this. The dog who used to sprint through compound ruins, who barked before the alarms did, who once took shrapnel to the flank to protect a fallen soldier. That dog had been fearless. Fire in his blood. But now this one barely moved, barely breathed. Jack rubbed his palms together. They felt clammy. "You used to love this kind of quiet," he murmured. Rex didn't react. He settled on the far side of the room, near the front door, curled into himself like the walls were watching. Jack leaned forward, elbows on his knees, heart caught somewhere between frustration and heartbreak. "I know you don't remember me," he said, voice low, "but I remember you." Outside, the wind shifted, and the trees rustled like an echo from far away. The sound of a camp on a still night. The kind of silence they used to sit in before everything went wrong. Jack didn't sleep much that night. He left the bedroom door open, just in case. Rex never came in. But just before dawn, when the shadows began to peel back from the corners of the house, Jack woke to a soft sound, paws shifting on wood. He looked out into the hallway. Rex was lying near the bedroom threshold, not inside, not close, but there, watching. It wasn't a reunion. Not yet, but it was the first threat of something. And for Jack, that was enough to hope. The food sat untouched. Jack had poured into the bowl hours ago, careful to pick something with the same formula they'd use overseas. Familiar scent, familiar texture, nothing too rich, nothing that would spook him. But Rex hadn't gone near it. The dog lay curled by the front door, body tense even in sleep. Not truly asleep, though. More like resting with one eye open. Every creak of the old floorboards, every groan of the wind against the house made his ears twitch, made his body shift. Jack stood in the doorway of the kitchen, leaning against a frame with a coffee mug growing cold in his hand. He hadn't sipped from it in over an hour. He just held it, the warmth long gone, like he was waiting for something that never came. He kept the lights low, just a lamp near the couch. The shadows stretched across the walls like long fingers, but the soft glow was enough to see Rex, his shape framed against the door like a guard that had never gone off duty. Jack watched the steady rise and fall of his rib cage. Measured, controlled. Ready? He took a step forward. Just one. The floor creaked beneath his heel. Rex's head lifted immediately, eyes sharp, body rigid. His gaze found Jack's without hesitation, and for a moment neither of them moved. Just two soldiers reading each other's posture. Jack raised a hand slowly, palm out, as if to say, "I'm not a threat." He didn't speak. Words didn't help right now. After a beat, Rex lowered his head again. Not relaxed, just returned to standby. Jack sighed. He moved to the couch and sat slowly, placing the mug on the table beside him. The silence in the room wasn't peaceful. It buzzed. It carried weight. Jack could feel it pressing into the corners of the house. The kind of silence that didn't come from comfort, but from holding too much for too long. He glanced at the untouched bowl again. The water level hadn't moved either. "You're not just confused," he said into the room. "You're scared." His voice sounded strange in the stillness. It echoed back at him like it didn't belong here. Jack leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. The scars on his knuckles caught the light. He'd known men like this, sat beside them in bunkers and tents. The ones who flinched at sudden movement, who never faced the door because they could not see it. Men who shut down not because they were weak, but because too much had been taken from them. He knew the look in Rex's eyes because he'd seen it in his own mirror. The trauma wasn't just physical. It clung to places deeper than blood. It rearranged the way you listened to the world, made you brace for things that never came. Or worse, made you brace for things that did. Jack stood again, slower this time, careful not to draw attention. He walked to the kitchen, poured the food back into the bag, sealed it. No reason to leave it out and add to the tension. Rex needed control, space, predictability. When he came back, Rex was watching him again. Not aggressively, not fearfully, just watching. Jack knelt down near the entry to the hallway, keeping a distance. "I don't expect you to come running. I just need you to stay. That's all. Stay, and maybe someday we'll find our way back." The dog didn't move. So Jack stayed there, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, the air growing colder as night bled into early morning. His legs stiffened. His back ached, but he didn't move. He watched Rex doze and startle, the cycle repeating like a loop in a damaged reel. Every twitch of the tail, every shallow breath. At one point, hours in, Rex shifted and let out a soft sound, more breath than whimper. Jack didn't speak. He just listened. It wasn't memory loss. It wasn't forgetting. It was remembering too much. And Jack knew that kind of remembering well. When the sky outside began to pale with the first hint of dawn, Jack finally stood. He stretched his sore limbs and walked to the front door, careful not to startle Rex. The dog didn't lift his head this time, but his eyes cracked open, just slightly, following Jack's movement. Jack left the door locked, lights off, house quiet. He went to his room, left the door open behind him. That morning, as he drifted into a shallow, exhausted sleep, he knew it would take more than time. But the first night had passed, and neither of them had left. The morning light crept slowly through the curtains, slicing across the hardwood floor in thin bands of gold. Jack sat at the edge of his bed, boots half-laced, eyes fixed on a dusty box tucked beneath his dresser. He hadn't opened it in years. Not since the day he came back and swore to leave that life seal behind him. But the quiet rustling he heard from the living room, soft paws shifting, claws gently clicking against the floor, made him move. He pulled the box out, the cardboard soft around the edges, corners chewed from time and forgotten mice. When he cracked it open, the smell rose immediately. It wasn't foul, just familiar. Sand, sweat, leather, that desert kind of dry, that deployment kind of worn. Inside was a vest. Faded camo fabric, one shoulder strap half torn, the old unit patch still clinging by a stubborn thread. He ran a hand over it, slow. The material was stiff with old memory. He could almost hear the wind through barbed wire fences, the rotor blades slicing heat into the air, Rex panting beside him. Always close, always ready. Jack didn't say anything, just stood and carried the vest down the hallway, its weight light in his hands, but somehow heavier on his chest with every step. Rex was curled near the front door again, the same way he'd spent most of the past 2 days. He lifted his head when Jack entered the room, ears shifting toward the sound but not rising all the way. He watched, silent. Jack moved toward the far corner, Rex's spot. Not too close, not intrusive. He knelt, placed the vest down carefully, and smoothed it out on the floor. The motion was deliberate, like offering something ancient, something sacred. He stepped back and sat on the floor, out of the way, just watched. Rex stared at the vest for a long moment. His eyes didn't shift. His body didn't tense. It was as if he was waiting for it to change into something else. Someone else. Then he stood. The motion was slow, fluid. No hesitation, but no rush. He approached the vest the way he might have approached an old battleground. Wary, instinctive. His nose lowered, flared. He sniffed once, twice, then a third time, longer. His head tilted slightly, ears twitching, his posture uncertain. Jack held his breath. Come on, he thought. Please. Rex lingered. His nose hovered over the patch, the scent unmistakable. He stood like that for a few seconds more. And then he turned away, walked back to the front door, laid down, rested his head on his paws. Jack didn't move. His heart didn't sink all at once. It folded quietly like paper. Slow, silent, an ache that didn't demand attention, just took up space and refused to leave. He looked at the vest still lying there on the floor, alone in the corner, like a relic in a museum. It was just fabric, just gear, just memory. But he thought maybe it would spark something. A scent buried deep, a flicker in the dark, a trigger that pulled the past forward long enough for Rex to see him. He closed his eyes for a moment. You wore that every day, he said quietly, not looking at the dog. Ran through explosions with it on. Took a bullet through that left strap. He opened his eyes again. I still have the med report. You lost too much blood to stand, and you still dragged yourself back to find me. Rex didn't lift his head. You remember saving me. I know you do. Somewhere in there. The words drifted off, caught in the stale air between them. Jack stood slowly. The creak of his knees broke the silence, and he walked back to the vest, picked it up carefully like it might crumble in his hands. He folded it once, then placed it beside the empty dog bed again, not on it, just near it. Keep it, he murmured. Or don't. It's yours either way. He turned to leave the room, but stopped in the doorway. He didn't look back, just waited, eyes focused on the hallway ahead. No sound, no shift, no movement. Jack walked away, feeling the emptiness follow him down the corridor. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. But today, not even the scent of the past could break through. And that, somehow, hurt more than silence ever had. The attic smelled like dust and old pine, thick and untouched. It had been years since Jack had climbed up there, let alone opened the footlocker that now sat like a stubborn shadow in the corner. It was one of those heavy-duty military cases. Steel clasps, olive green, dented from travel and years of being ignored. He knelt slowly, feeling the stiffness in his joints, and pried it open. The hinges groaned like something waking from sleep. Inside, time folded on itself. Sand-caked boots, a pair of cracked sunglasses, a stack of folded uniforms still holding the dry scent of heat and smoke. He moved them aside carefully, not with nostalgia, but with quiet respect, like exhuming something sacred. At the bottom, under an old map marked with grease pencil notations and half a packet of salt tabs, He saw it. The rubber ball. It was red once, now faded to a dull maroon. The surface was scuffed, pitted with tiny teeth marks. Jack picked it up and rolled in his palm. He remembered how Rex used to go wild for it. Didn't matter what kind of day they'd had, gunfire, explosions, missions gone sideways. If Jack pulled that ball from his vest, Rex would light up, like it was the only thing that existed, like it was joy itself. He stood and turned the ball over one more time in his hand, then closed the case, leaving the rest untouched. The attic door groaned on its hinges as he climbed down, careful not to trip. Downstairs, the house was quiet. He found Rex lying in the same place, by the front door, head on his paws, eyes half-lidded but never fully asleep, always listening, always waiting. Jack approached slowly, ball in hand. "Remember this?" he asked, holding it up. Rex blinked, but didn't move. Jack crouched a few feet away. He didn't say anything else. He just gave the ball a soft, underhand toss. It bounced once on the hardwood, then rolled in a lazy arc across the living room floor, coming to a stop just a few feet from Rex. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound. No reaction. Then Rex lifted his head. His eyes found the ball. His ears twitched. He sniffed the air. Jack watched, holding his breath. Rex didn't move toward it, but he didn't look away either. He stared at it, the way someone might stare at a photograph they couldn't quite place. There was no tail wag, no bark, just a silence so loaded. It felt like a held breath waiting to be remembered. Jack's voice cracked a little. "You used to chase this thing across the compound like it was made of steak." Rex didn't blink. "You'd drop it at my feet and then bark like I was taking too long. Every damn time." Still no movement. Jack forced a smile. The kind that didn't reach his eyes. Didn't even try. "You're still in there, buddy. Somewhere." He didn't pick the ball up. Didn't throw it again. He left it where it was, close enough to be seen, far enough to be chosen. He moved to the couch, sat down slowly. His shoulders sagged beneath the weight of hope unfulfilled. But still, he kept watching. Minutes passed. Rex laid his head back down, but his eyes stayed on the ball. Jack noticed that. He noticed a shift in breathing, the slight twitch in Rex's paw when the ball had first bounced, the pause before lowering his head again. It wasn't much, barely anything, but Jack had learned long ago to pay attention to the small things. A glance, a change in gait, the way a tail moved or didn't. It's how they survived. It's how Rex had saved him more than once. He stayed on the couch until the sun began to dip low, slanting warm light across the floorboards. The ball still sat in the same place. Rex hadn't gone to it, hadn't touched it, but neither had he turned away. And that, Jack told himself, was something. That night, when the house went quiet again, he found himself standing by the door, just watching Rex sleep. The dog was curled tighter than usual, but not pressed against the wall like before. The distance had closed, barely, but it had closed. The ball lay just a few feet away, lit by the soft orange of the porch light through the glass. Jack whispered, almost to himself, "You remember more than you're letting on, don't you?" No answer, just a flick of an ear in his direction. Then stillness. Jack turned and headed to bed, leaving the door open like always. The ball stayed where it was, waiting, just like the rest of them. The wind came first, curling around the house with a low, restless moan. Branches scratched against the window panes like fingers trying to get in. Jack stood at the kitchen sink, watching the dark clouds stack high over the tree-line like a slow-moving tide. The air had that familiar charge. Tense, metallic, a warning pulled tight across the sky. He hated storms, not because of the rain or the noise, but because of what they stirred up. Memories came with thunder, sharp and uninvited. Night missions under sudden lightning. The way mortar blasts echoed the same way deep thunder did, dull, full-bellied, delayed just long enough to shake your bones after you thought it was safe. Jack filled a bowl with water and set it down near Rex's spot by the door. He didn't expect him to drink, not tonight, but he left it there anyway. He flicked off the kitchen light and moved to the living room, settling into the couch with a blanket across his knees and a book he wouldn't read. He kept the lamp on low, casting the room in a soft amber haze, a kind of quiet beacon in the dark. Outside, the storm cracked open. Thunder rolled long and low, followed by a sudden slash of lightning that lit the room white for half a breath. Jack didn't flinch, but his eyes moved instinctively toward the hallway where Rex had disappeared earlier. He waited. Nothing. No sound of claws on the floor. No restless pacing. He turned back to window. Another flash. Another growl of sky. The kind that rattled the glass and crawled up the spine. Still no movement. Jack exhaled slowly and let his head rest back against the cushion. The rhythm of the storm built around him, a tempo rising just out of reach. He remembered being in a tent once, somewhere hot and wrong, counting the time between the flash and the sound. Try to guess how close the incoming fire really was. Rex had been beside him, alert and breathing steady, a constant anchor in a world that kept breaking loose. Now, years later, in the safety of his own home, Jack felt the same kind of waiting. Then he heard it, a soft scrape, pause across wood, hesitant, unhurried. He didn't look up right away, just listened. The steps drew closer, slow and even. No panic, no tail tucked, no sprint to hide under the table or disappear into another room. Rex appeared at the edge of the living room, his body shadowed in the dim light. Jack shifted slightly, giving him space, not moving too fast. The dog stood there for a moment, eyes flicking to the couch, then to the floor, not meeting Jack's gaze. And then, slowly, Rex walked forward. He didn't make a sound. No bark, no whine. He didn't look at Jack. Just came to a stop beside the couch and lowered himself down, resting on the floor with a soft exhale. His body was angled away, his head turned toward the window, but he was close. Close enough for Jack to feel the heat of him through the blanket. Jack didn't speak, didn't reach out. He just let the silence settle between them, heavier than the storm. It wasn't affection. It wasn't trust. But it was proximity. It was choice. The thunder cracked again, louder this time. The windows trembled. Rex didn't move. He stayed, ears perked but not pinned, muscles coiled but not rigid, watching the same darkness Jack watched. Jack swallowed something tight in his throat and lowered the book to his lap. You used to bolt under cots when storms hit. No one ever believed it. Big, tough war dog, scared of thunder. Rex flicked an ear, but still didn't look at him. "That's all right," Jack said, softer now. "We were all scared of something." They sat like that for a long while, the room flickering every so often with white flashes that drew long shadows across the floor. Rain started to patter against the roof, light at first, then heavier. The rhythm of it filled the room, mixing with the occasional growl of the sky, a strange kind of lullaby that neither of them had asked for, but both somehow needed. Eventually, Jack shifted his feet, careful not to touch the dog. Rex didn't pull away, didn't even blink. Jack smiled faintly in the dark, not wide, not triumphant, but real. He didn't reach for the past anymore. He just sat with what was in front of him. No eye contact, no tail wag, but a quiet presence. And for the first time in a long while, that was more than enough. The morning was still, the kind of stillness that settled over the world just after storm had moved through. Dew clung to the grass in small silver beads, and the air held a softness it hadn't carried in days. Jack stepped out onto the porch with a cup of coffee and an old sweatshirt draped over his shoulders. His boots made a muted sound against the boards, soft enough not to draw too much attention. Rex lay near the edge of the yard, in his usual place beneath the lone tree. The spot had become his without ceremony, as if the ground had claimed him gently, offering space without question. He wasn't asleep, not fully. His ears shifted at every sound, the distant chirp of birds, the rustling of leaves, the quiet creak of Jack's steps. Jack took a slow sip of his coffee, eyes scanning the line of trees that bordered the property. For a moment, he just stood there, not thinking about progress or memories or what might happen today. Then, almost without realizing it, his hand dipped into his coat pocket and wrapped around the worn rubber ball he'd started carrying again. It had become a habit, a ritual. Each day, he'd hold it, squeeze it in his palm, and toss it once, soft and easy, nothing demanding. Just an offering. A memory in motion. Most days, Rex ignored it. But Jack threw it anyway. This morning felt different, though. Maybe it was the light. Maybe it was the way the world felt new again after the storm. Or maybe it was nothing at all. Jack stepped off the porch, walked to the middle of the yard, and held the ball at his side. He didn't call out, didn't say Rex's name. He simply let the moment breathe, then gave the ball a gentle toss. It bounced once, twice, then rolled, wobbling to stop in the grass a few feet from where Rex lay. Silence followed. Jack waited, his eyes fixed on the dog, like a man watching for the horizon to move. Rex lifted his head. It was slow, almost lazy, as if he hadn't really made a decision yet. But his eyes were locked on the ball. His ears twitched, tail still. Jack didn't move. Rex stood. One step, then another. His legs carried him in a deliberate, careful gait, not rushed but purposeful. He approached the ball, nose low, shoulders tense with a kind of cautious curiosity. He stopped in front of it. Jack's breath caught in his throat, his fingers tightening around a coffee mug, so hard he could feel the ceramic press into his skin. Rex sniffed the ball once. Then again, he tilted his head, nudged it with his nose, sending it rolling an inch through the grass. Jack didn't say a word. He couldn't. His voice felt stuck behind something swelling in his chest. Too wide, too heavy, too sudden to shape into speech. Rex looked at the ball, then at nothing at all, then back again. His nose touched it once more, softer this time. Then he turned, slowly, and walked back to his spot under the tree. He didn't fetch it. He didn't bark. But he had moved. Chosen. Engaged. Jack stood there a moment longer, then walked to where the ball sat in the grass. He picked it up with both hands, holding it like something fragile. The sun hit his shoulders as he turned to glance back at Rex. The dog was watching him now. Not intensely. Not like a soldier scanning perimeter. But watching. Jack offered a faint smile. "That's all right," he said, more to the wind than the dog. One step at a time. He returned to the porch and sat down, laying the ball gently beside him. He didn't need more than that. Not today. Something had cracked. Not broken, not shattered, just cracked. A thin line in the wall they'd both been living behind. Enough for a little light to slip through. And sometimes light was all it took. The sky was pale and cloudless, washed in that soft gray blue that always seemed to hover before spring decided whether to stay or go. The air outside smelled faintly of pine and smoke from a neighbor's fireplace, and somewhere down the road, a dog barked once, sharp, distant, forgotten. Jack sat at the kitchen table with his elbows resting on the scarred wood, his coffee untouched. The house was still, not the brittle kind of silence from those first nights, but a different one, softer, waiting. He reached into the drawer beside him and pulled out his old phone. The screen was cracked across the top corner, spider-like ice, but the thing still worked. It had survived dust, heat, desert storms, a fall into a ditch during a blackout op, and the slow passage of years. He thumbed through a folder buried under layers of forgetfulness. Training videos, audio memos, notes from deployment. He hadn't listened to any of it since before he'd come home. Not even once. But today felt like a door cracked open. His thumb hovered over one file. The date was smeared by time. But he remembered the clip. Short, rough quality. The two of them in the training yard. Jack giving commands. Rex following. Their voices had danced through those moments like a song only the two of them could hear. Jack hit play. The sound crackled to life. Static first, then his own voice younger and sharper. "Rex, sit." A pause. "Good boy. Stay." And then laughter. Jack's laugh. Light, real. The kind that felt foreign now. Jack lowered the volume, then tapped the speaker icon to make sure it would echo into the room. From the living room, he heard a shift, claws against the hardwood. He didn't move, didn't look up, just let the clip play. Rex heel. And then another voice, one that used to belong to someone clearer, someone less haunted. "Attaboy." That's how we do it. Jack paused the audio and turned his chair. Rex stood just beyond the hallway, eyes fixed on the phone, his head slightly tilted. One paw lifted halfway, suspended in a moment of decision. Jack's breath caught. "Rex," he said softly. "You remember that?" The dog didn't move, but his gaze was sharper now, focused, as if he were trying to align something inside himself. Jack turned the volume up just a little and replayed the clip. "Rex, sit." On cue, Rex's body lowered slowly, deliberate, hesitant, but without confusion. Jack stood. The chair scraped gently behind him, but he didn't care if it startled anything. He crossed the room with slow, measured steps and stopped a few feet away. The dog looked up at him, chest rising and falling in deep, steady breaths. His ears were forward now, alert, but not tense, not guarded. Jack knelt. It wasn't fast. His knees ached. The floor was cold. But he sank down until he was level with the dog, his hands open and steady, resting on his thighs. He didn't say anything, didn't reach out. Rex moved first. A single step, then another. He crossed the space between them like he'd never left, not with a wagging tail or a bounding leap, but with purpose, with memory. He stopped right in front of Jack, nose brushing gently against his chest. And Jack broke. The sob hit without warning. Quiet, guttural, the kind of sound you make when you've been holding your breath for too many years. He let it out, his hands hovering just inches from Rex's shoulders, afraid to scare him, afraid it would all dissolve like smoke if he moved too fast. But Rex didn't flinch. He leaned in, pressed his body against Jack's chest. No words passed between them. No commands. No corrections. Just breath. Just weight. Just the steady beat of a heart remembering its rhythm. Jack let his hand move slowly, gently, to the back of Rex's neck. His fingers curled into the thick fur. Familiar. Solid. Real. "You're back," he whispered, forehead resting against the dog's. "You found your way home." Outside, the wind stirred the trees, shaking loose the last of winter's grasp. Inside, a silence settled again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was full, a bond remembered. And for the first time in years, Jack didn't feel like he was alone. The grass was still damp from the morning dew, catching the sunlight like scattered glass. The backyard stretched out in quiet stillness. Just beyond the porch steps, a patch of earth that had seen more waiting than playing. A gentle breeze rolled through the trees, rustling the leaves with a whisper so soft it felt like memory. Jack stood by the railing with a cup of black coffee, steam curling into the cold morning air. He hadn't said anything yet, just watched the sky as it shifted through shades of gold and blue. His body was still, but inside, something hummed quietly, a different kind of stillness, not the numb kind, the kind that holds space for what might come. Behind him, the screen door creaked open. He didn't turn. He already knew. The sound of soft paws against what made his chest tighten, but not in the way it used to, not with fear, not with tension. This was something else. Rex stepped down onto the porch and into the yard, nose low, tail level with his back. He didn't move with caution anymore. He moved like he belonged, like the space was familiar, claimed. He stopped in the center of the yard and stood there, looking around as if seeing the place not just with eyes, but with memory. Jack took another sip of his coffee and stepped down into the grass, the ground cool beneath his boots. Rex's ears flicked at the sound. He turned, looked up at Jack, then down again at something nestled in the grass near his paws. It was a ball. Jack froze, not daring to believe it. Rex nudged it forward with his nose. Once, then again. He lowered his body slightly, like a soldier ready to spring, but waited. Jack's mouth opened, but no words came out. Rex picked up the ball gently, walked the distance between them, and placed it at Jack's feet. Then he looked up, not for approval, not for praise, but for connection. And Jack laughed, not a chuckle, not the hollow kind that breaks silence without meaning it. A real laugh, deep, full, unpracticed. It cracked something open in his chest, wide and sudden. He didn't try to stop it. Didn't care if it sounded strange in the still morning air. He let it rise and spill out, loud and free. Rex tilted his head, tail giving a tentative wag. Just once. Jack dropped to his knees in the grass. Not because he had to, but because he needed to meet this moment the way it had been offered. You remembered. he said, voice breaking around the words. You really remembered. He reached out, wrapping his arms around Rex's thick neck, pulling him in close. Rex didn't stiffen, didn't flinch. He leaned in, pressing into the embrace with the full weight of trust. Jack buried his face into the dog's fur, eyes closed, heart wide open. But it wasn't just Rex who remembered. Jack did too. He remembered what it felt like to be needed, to be trusted, to not be alone in the fight. He remembered the man he was before the silence took over, the man who laughed without guilt, who believed in bonds that couldn't be broken, no matter how deep the damage ran. They stayed like that in the middle of the yard, just breathing, just being. Two soldiers home from a war they never talked about. Two hearts finding rhythm again after years of static. Eventually, Jack leaned back and picked up the ball. He didn't have to throw it. Not yet. Rex would wait. Instead, Jack held in his hands like something sacred and looked at the dog who had brought him back to life, piece by piece. You didn't just remember the ball, he whispered. You remembered us. Rex licked his hand once, slow and steady. The breeze passed through the trees again, and this time it felt like something was letting go, not forgotten, but finally at peace. And as Jack stood, ball in hand, with Rex beside him in the sunlight, he knew the healing wasn't over, but it had begun, and they would remember together. If this story moved you, even just a little, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. There are more stories like Jack and Rex's waiting to be told, real moments of loyalty, healing, and second chances. Your support helps us keep sharing them. So stick around, because sometimes the ones who save us walk on four legs.